Tom Cruise noticed a pregnant woman working hard at a gas station, and what he did will shock you. The gas station was buzzing with its usual chaos. Cars honking impatiently, people rushing in and out of the convenience store, and the rhythmic clang of the gas pump nozzles. Among the commotion stood a woman in her late 20s, her face red from the scorching sun, visibly pregnant, and yet moving as fast as she could between customers. Sweat streaked down her face, but she kept a polite smile plastered on for every person she served. Her name was Carly, and that day, everything in her life was about to change in ways she never expected. Tom Cruise wasn't supposed to be there. He had a private jet waiting at a small airstrip an hour away, but a minor mechanical issue grounded his plans, leaving him and his assistant stranded for the afternoon. He decided to take a detour to a nearby town while waiting for repairs and stopped at the gas station to grab a drink and stretch his legs. Sporting a baseball cap and sunglasses, he hoped to go unnoticed. But then he noticed Carly. She was struggling to carry a box of bottled water from a delivery truck into the store, her steps unsteady on the uneven asphalt. A man walked right past her, almost knocking her off balance, and didn't even apologize. Tom frowned. He could tell she wasn't just tired, she was exhausted. When he saw her pause to take a deep breath and discreetly rub her back, something about the scene struck him hard. Maybe it was because he'd grown up watching his single mom work herself to the bone to provide for him and his sisters. Maybe it was because, despite his fame and fortune, moments like this still grounded him. Or maybe it was just the sheer humanity of it all. This young woman, pregnant and obviously pushing herself beyond her limits, with no one around her seeming to care. Tom stepped out of the SUV and walked into the store. The clerk behind the counter didn't even look up from his phone. Tom grabbed a bottle of water, paid, and went back outside, where Carly was now cleaning a spill near the pumps. "Hey, excuse me," he called out. She looked up, startled, and blinked at him like she wasn't sure whether to smile or keep her distance. Yes? You okay?" he asked, handing her the cold bottle of water. Carly hesitated before accepting it, her brow furrowing slightly. "I'm fine, thank you. Just busy." Tom nodded, but he could see right through her answer. She was anything but fine. "Do you work here alone?" "Mostly. My boss sometimes stops by, but not often." Tom glanced around the station. There were at least a dozen cars in the lot, and Carly seemed to be doing everything. Ringing up customers, stocking shelves, and managing the pumps. "Must be tough," he said. She shrugged. "It's a job. Gotta do what you gotta do, right?" Her voice carried an edge of resignation, but she quickly forced another smile. Tom could feel his assistant, Ben, giving him the subtle, "we should go look from across the lot," but he wasn't ready to leave just yet. Something about Carly's situation tugged at him. "Is there anyone helping you? Family or friends?" he asked. That Carly's smile faltered for a moment. "Not really. Just me and the little one, I guess." She patted her belly lightly, her expression softening as she did. Tom hesitated before asking his next question. "What about the father?" Carly stiffened slightly, but quickly recovered. "Not in the picture," she said simply. Tom didn't press further, but the look in her eyes told him enough. Whoever the father was, he wasn't someone Carly could rely on. At that moment, a car honked loudly at the pump, and Carly flinched. "I've got to get back to work," she said hurriedly, handing him the empty water bottle before rushing off. Tom watched her go, feeling a strange mix of admiration and frustration. She was clearly tough and independent, but no one should have to face what she was dealing with alone, especially not in her condition. As he climbed back into the SUV, Ben gave him a curious look. "You good?" Tom didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared out the window, watching Carly hustle between the pumps and the store, her steps growing slower with each trip. "Find me the owner of this place," Tom said suddenly. Ben blinked. "What?" "The owner of the gas station," Tom repeated, his tone firmer this time. "I want to talk to them." Ben raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. He pulled out his phone and started making calls as they drove off, leaving Tom to stare back at the gas station in the rearview mirror. Later that evening, Carly finally locked up the gas station. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Her back ached, her feet were swollen, and her head throbbed from the noise and fumes she'd dealt with all day. She had a small apartment nearby, and every part of her body was begging for a hot shower and sleep As she turned to walk home, a sleek black SUV pulled into the lot. She paused, her hand tightening on her keys, as the passenger door opened. "Hey, Carly," she squinted, trying to place the familiar voice. When the man stepped into the light of the overhead lamps, she realized it was the guy from earlier, the one with the baseball cap and sunglasses. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice cautious but not unfriendly. He smiled, pulling off the cap and lowering his sunglasses. Carly's breath caught. She recognized him now, though it felt so surreal her brain struggled to process it. "Wait, are you—" "Tom Cruise," he said, giving her a small, apologetic shrug. "Sorry, I didn't introduce myself properly earlier." Carly stared at him, speechless. Tom chuckled. Then he gestured to the car. "Do you have a minute? I'd like to talk." "About what?" she asked warily. "It's good, I promise." "Nothing weird," he said quickly, raising his hands in a gesture of innocence. Carly hesitated, but eventually nodded. "Okay." Tom led her to a nearby picnic table on the edge of the lot. "I know this is probably really strange for you," he started, "but I couldn't stop thinking about you after earlier. The way you were working so hard, taking on everything by yourself, I wanted to do something to help." Carly's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "You don't need to do that. I've fine." Tom raised an eyebrow. "Are you? You got a baby on the way, and you're running this whole place on your own. That's not fine, Carly. That's heroic, but it's also not sustainable." Carly opened her mouth to argue, but stopped when she saw the sincerity in his eyes. No one had ever called her heroic before, and for some reason, the word made her throat tighten. "What kind of help are you talking about?" she asked cautiously. Tom leaned forward, his expression earnest. "I want to make sure you're taken care of. I talked to the owner of this station earlier." "You what?" Carly's eyes widened. "Relax," he said quickly. "I didn't say anything bad. I just wanted to know more about your situation. Turns out, your boss is not the most understanding guy, huh?" Carly sighed. "You could say that. He pays me the bare minimum, and if I call out sick, he threatens to dock my pay. But it's a job, and I need it." "Well," Tom said with a small grin, "you don't need to worry about him anymore." "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice sharp with suspicion. Tom hesitated for a moment before answering. "I bought the gas station." Carly blinked at him, stunned into silence. "You what?" "I bought it," he repeated, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. "Technically, my foundation bought it, but yeah, I'm the new owner." Carly stared at him, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to process what he was saying. "Why? Why would you do that?" "Because I can," Tom said simply. "And because people like you deserve a break. You're working so hard just to get by, and that's not fair. You're about to bring a child into this world, and you shouldn't have to do it all alone." Carly shook her head, overwhelmed. "This is insane. You don't even know me." "Maybe not," Tom admitted, "but I've seen enough to know you deserve better." She looked down at her hands, her emotions swirling. No one had ever gone out of their way for her like this. It felt too good to be true. "What's the catch?" she asked finally. Tom laughed. "No catch. I've already arranged for a new manager to come in and take over most of the responsibilities. You'll still have a job here if you want it, but only as much as you feel comfortable doing. And I'm giving you a raise." Carly's jaw dropped. "You can't just do all that." "Sure I can," Tom said with a grin. Carly didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her instincts told her to be wary, but the sincerity in Tom's voice made her want to believe him. "And one more thing," he added. "We've also set up a fund to help with your baby, prenatal care, supplies, whatever you need. You won't have to pay for any of it." Carly's breath hitched, and tears filled her eyes. She tried to blink them away, but they spilled over anyway. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Because I can," Tom said again, his voice softer this time. "And because no one should have to do it all alone." Carly wiped at her cheeks, her emotions a mix of disbelief, gratitude, and something she couldn't quite name. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. That night, Carly lay awake in her tiny apartment, staring at the cracked ceiling. Her thoughts raced, replaying the surreal events at the gas station. Tom Cruise, the Tom Cruise, had swooped into her life, bought the place where she worked, and promised to make everything easier. It felt like a dream. and a part of her was terrified that she'd wake up to find nothing had changed. The next morning, she dragged herself out of bed and walked to the station, half expecting to see it exactly as it had always been, run down, chaotic, and under her grueling control. But when she arrived, she stopped in her tracks. The place was buzzing with activity, but not the usual kind. A crew of workers in matching uniforms were cleaning the parking lot, replacing old signage, and scrubbing the windows until they gleamed. Inside, the shelves were being restocked with fresh products, and the air smelled faintly of paint. Carly stepped inside, stunned. "Good morning, Carly." She turned to see a tall woman with a warm smile approaching her. "I'm Monica. Tom told me to meet you here. I'm the new manager." Carly blinked. "New manager?" "That's right. You're officially off the hook for running this place by yourself. From now on, I'll be handling operations. You can work as much or as little as you want." Carly opened her mouth to protest, but Monica held up a hand. "Tom insisted. He said you deserved a rest, especially with the baby coming soon. So, if you want, you can take today off. Or tomorrow. Or both." Carly stood there, speechless, as Monica handed her an envelope. "This is from Tom," Monica explained. "It's for your first doctor's appointment. He also set up a meeting with a financial advisor to help you plan for the future." Carly's hands trembled as she took the envelope. She didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or run away in disbelief. Is this really happening?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Monica smiled kindly. "It really is. You've been through a lot, Carly. Let someone else take care of things for a while." For the first time in years, Carly allowed herself to relax. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes again, and muttered a quiet, "Thank you." Meanwhile, Tom was on a flight back to Los Angeles, feeling unusually content. He'd always believed in using his wealth and influence to make a difference, but this felt more personal. Carly reminded him of his mother, and in helping her, he felt like he was honoring her memory, that he didn't expect any publicity for what he'd done. In fact, he made it clear to his team that this wasn't about headlines or photo ops. It was about doing the right thing. But as it turned out, the story was already spreading that a week later, Carly was at her apartment, enjoying the rare luxury of a quiet morning. Her phone buzzed, and she picked it up, expecting another call from Monica. Instead, her screen lit up with notifications. Her heart sank. Carly didn't have a big online presence. She barely used social media, but somehow, her story had gone viral. A customer at the gas station had taken a photo of Tom, handing her the water bottle, and posted it with a caption that read, "When Tom Cruise meets a hardworking mom-to-be, he changes her life. Absolute legend." The post had blown up overnight. News outlets picked it up, and now her face and her story were plastered all over the internet. Carly's stomach churned as she read the comments. Most were supportive, but a few were cruel. People accused her of milking the situation, of playing the victim for a handout. She put the phone down, her hands shaking. This wasn't what she'd wanted. Moments later, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a video call. Carly hesitated before answering. Tom's face appeared on the screen, his expression apologetic. "Hey, Carly. I heard what's going on. Are you okay?" She let out a shaky breath. "Not really. I didn't ask for all this attention." "I know," Tom said gently. "Neither of us did. But I promise we'll handle it. My team is already working to take the pressure off you. This will die down soon." Carly nodded, but the knot in her chest didn't loosen. I don't want people to think I'm taking advantage of you." Tom's expression softened. "Carly, the people who matter know the truth. And you don't owe anyone an explanation for accepting help. You've earned it." Carly wiped at her eyes, nodding again. "Thank you. For everything." Tom smiled. "You're welcome. And remember, if you need anything, you call me. Anytime." After the call ended, Carly sat in silence for a long moment. The world outside might have been loud and chaotic, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a sense of peace. She wasn't alone anymore. In the days that followed, Carly tried to keep her head down and focus on the positive changes in her life. The gas station had been transformed into a clean, well-run business. Monica handled the day-to-day operations with precision, and Carly now worked reduced hours with a generous raise. She spent her afternoons attending doctor's appointments, preparing for the baby, and even taking time to rest, a luxury she hadn't allowed herself in years. But the attention didn't fade as quickly as Tom had hoped. One morning, Carly was heading to the station when she noticed a car parked across the street. A man holding a camera sat inside, his lens pointed directly at her. Carly's stomach churned. She quickened her pace, keeping her head down, but the sound of the camera shutter followed her. Inside, Monica noticed her pale face immediately. "What's wrong?" she asked. There's someone outside. With a camera." Monica frowned and peeked out the window. Her jaw tightened. "I'll handle this." Before Carly could protest, Monica marched outside. Carly watched nervously as her new manager confronted the photographer. Though she couldn't hear the words, Monica's body language was clear. Firm, no nonsense, and not up for negotiation. After a tense exchange, the photographer got back into his car and drove off. When Monica came back inside, she sighed. "They're relentless. I'll call Tom's team and let them know what's happening. They've dealt with this kind of thing before." Carly nodded, grateful but still uneasy. She couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, even when the photographer was gone. That evening, as Carly sat in her apartment, her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello? Chloe. It's Tom." Her shoulders relaxed at the sound of his familiar voice. Tom. "I didn't expect to hear from you again so soon." "Monica told me about the photographer," he said, concern evident in his tone. "I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. It wasn't supposed to be like this." "It's not your fault," Carly said quickly. I didn't realize how overwhelming this would be." "I know," Tom said softly. "Listen, I have an idea. It might help take the pressure off you, but I want to make sure you're okay with it first." "What kind of idea?" Carly asked, her curiosity piqued. "I've been working on a statement with my PR team," he explained. "If we release it, it could redirect the attention away from you and onto me. But it would mean sharing a little more of your story publicly. Nothing too personal, just enough to explain why I wanted to help." Carly bit her lip, thinking it over. "Do you really think it would work?" "It might not stop everything," Tom admitted, "but it could make things easier for you. And if you're not comfortable with it, we won't do it. No pressure." Carly took a deep breath. She hated the idea of her life being splashed across headlines again, but if it meant the photographers would leave her alone— "Okay," she said finally. "Let's do it." The next day, a carefully worded statement was released to the media. In it, Tom explained that he had been inspired by Carly's resilience and hard work. He emphasized that his actions weren't about charity, but about recognizing someone who truly deserved a break. The statement struck a chord with the public. Instead of focusing on Carly's personal life, the media shifted their attention to Tom's message about kindness and compassion. The frenzy began to die down, and the photographers outside Carly's apartment vanished. For the first time in weeks, Carly felt like she could breathe again. One quiet afternoon, Carly was at home folding baby clothes when her phone buzzed. It was an email notification, but the sender's name made her heart skip a beat. That IT was from the financial advisor Tom had arranged for her. Carly opened the email and read through it, her eyes widening as she processed the information. The fund Tom had set up for her wasn't just for short-term expenses. It was enough to cover the baby's needs for years. And if she managed it carefully, it could even help her save for her child's future education. She set her phone down, her hands trembling. All her life, Carly had struggled to make ends meet. She'd taken on every challenge alone, never daring to hope for more than the bare minimum. But now, for the first time, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Hope. Her baby wouldn't have to grow up the way she had, scraping by, always worried about the next bill or the next meal. And it was all because one man had stopped at a gas station and noticed her. Tom, back in Los Angeles, received a text from Carly later that evening. It was simple but heartfelt. "Thank you. You've given me more than you'll ever know." That he smiled, his heart warming as he read it. To him, it was a small gesture, one he could afford to make. But to Carly, it was everything. And that, Tom thought, was what truly mattered. That a few months later, the gas station was almost unrecognizable. The floors gleamed, the shelves were stocked with high-quality products, and the employees, now part of a full team, worked in a relaxed, supportive environment. Carly still worked part-time, but now she spent most of her days preparing for the baby's arrival. Her co-workers often teased her about being this celebrity employee, but it was always in good fun. The media attention had long since faded, and Carly's life had settled into a new, peaceful rhythm. One crisp autumn morning, Carly walked into the station carrying a box of donuts for the team. Monica greeted her with a grin. "Good timing," Monica said. "We just got a delivery." Carly frowned. "A delivery? I didn't order anything." Monica nodded toward the counter, where a large, beautifully wrapped gift box sat. There was no label or card, just Carly's name written in elegant script on the top. Curious, Carly set the donuts down and opened the box. Inside, nestled among layers of tissue paper, was a collection of baby clothes, blankets, and a handwritten note. She unfolded the note, her heart racing as she recognized the neat handwriting. "Carly, by now, you've probably got everything you need for the little one, but I couldn't resist sending a few more things. Consider this my way of saying thank you for reminding me of what truly matters in life, that you've got an incredible journey ahead of you, and I know you'll be an amazing mom. If you ever need anything, you know how to reach me. Take care, and give the little one a hug from me when they arrive." Carly's eyes filled with tears as she read the note. She gently placed it back in the box and ran her fingers over the soft fabric of the baby clothes. Monica leaned against the counter, smiling knowingly. "He's one of the good ones, isn't he?" Carly nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "Yeah, he really is." Months later, on a quiet winter evening, Carly gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Her co-workers, friends, and even Monica visited her in the hospital, showering her and the baby with love and support. In a quiet moment, Carly cradled her newborn son in her arms, gazing down at his tiny, perfect face. She thought about all the moments that had led to this one, the struggles, the unexpected encounters, and the acts of kindness that had changed her life. When the nurse came in to ask for the baby's name, Carly smiled and replied softly, "Thomas." The nurse jotted it down, oblivious to the deeper meaning behind the name. But Carly knew. Thomas would grow up knowing that the world could be kind. He would know that sometimes, even in the darkest moments, a stranger's compassion could light the way. Far away in Los Angeles, Tom Cruise sat in his home office, going over scripts and planning his next project. His phone buzzed with a photo message, and he smiled as he opened it. The image showed Carly holding her newborn son, both of them beaming with joy. The caption read, "Meet Thomas. He's already a little star." Tom leaned back in his chair, a warm feeling spreading through his chest. For all the stunts, awards, and accolades he'd achieved in his life, nothing compared to the quiet satisfaction of knowing he'd made a difference. Some stories didn't need a big audience or flashy headlines. They just needed a little kindness and a lot of heart. And for Tom, that was enough.